Hey y'all, so this is a demonstration on how to render your floor plans. I started by drawing in the wooden lines, and I used a guide on the right, and this is printed to a 3/32 scale, and so every 6 inches on the 3/32 scale I made a dot on the right, and I used that to help carry my lines across to represent the wood flooring. This is time consuming, and you can leave your hatch on your floor plan when you print it if you want, but it needs to be very light and it needs to not overwhelm the drawing. So this is an option if your hatch isn't working, you can do this. So a typical dimension is about 6 inches for luxurious wooden floors, and so that's what I did for mine. That means you don't also have to draw as many lines. Anyway, so I just did 6-inch apart dots on the right, and I'm just drawing those lines in. Okay, so now that I have all the horizontal lines drawn, I'm going to start drawing in the vertical lines. And so again, I made marks every 6 feet now to show the length of each plank of wood. And I'm going to start by just drawing in the vertical lines. And this also takes a lot of time, and it can get really confusing as you keep doing it, but once you get in a rhythm, it starts going faster. So now I'm going to go and mark again in between each line to do the other set of lines so that the wood floor is offset and it's not all in line. Okay, so what I did to get started is just make a list of the colors that I think I'm going to use. And so I just kind of colored them on the paper and then wrote down what it was. And I can scan this and put it in Canvas for y'all. This is my inspiration, so this is my freshman year what I did. I did have markers, but I did use color pencil for some of it. So I'm just going to kind of go by these colors. Okay, so to start, I'm going to start with the wood floors, and I'm going to use French Gray 20% and beige. And so I'm going to start in a smaller room, so I'm going to maybe start in this library down here. And all you need to do, it's one trick with colored pencil is you just need to be very, very light. So I mean, barely any pressure, and just kind of start applying that color. And I like to start in the corners of the room because that's where it's going to be the darkest. And even if you choose really dark floors, you're going to want to render it very lightly. And in the very corners is where you can kind of indicate the true color of the floors. So very dark in the corners, and it gets lighter as it reaches the center of the room, and it also gets lighter in front of these windows right here, or even openings. So you see me like skipping over this window because I don't want any color there. If I do, it's very, very light. And then I'm going to skip over this window also and just color in this corner. Then I'm just going to be very light again. It's all about the layering. Now I'm just going to give like an overall, very light, just an overall wash of color to the room. Okay, now that I have that in, I'm just going to kind of start going in the corners of the room and start to deepen it up. So I'm just going to increase my pressure just by the tiniest bit. If you go too far or too heavy too fast, it can look unblended. So that's the trick with colored pencils. It takes 10 times longer than with markers, but you have to just be very careful and be very slow and deliberate with your pressure. And so you see I'm creating this kind of gradient right here. And eventually you just kind of get darker and you get more pressure. So right now I'm pushing pretty hard to get the most color that I can, because this is a very back corner. And then I'm just going to come up and slowly decrease my pressure as I go up. So kind of like that. And then with furniture, you want to make it feel like it pops off the page. So you kind of have to go around it like this. And for the sofa and the chairs in here, I think, so what's best is to go around it in an L shape. So you only choose two sides that are going to be your shadow side. And if you go all the way around an object, any object, it's going to make it feel just a little weird. So you kind of have to choose, like for this one, I know the light is coming here, so this would be my shadow side of the chair. And so I wouldn't go around here with the shadow, if that makes sense. And then same with the round poof, kind of this side would be your shadow. And then you would have a little bit right here, but not much again, because the light is coming in. And for this side, again, the corner is going to be very dark, so I'm putting pressure. And it's just all about layering, and I'm just layering and layering until I'm happy with it. And even then I'll probably go back. So I think I'm happy with this color right now. I think I'm going to add just a little bit onto this side of the chair. And also when you scan things, it really picks up more than your eye picks up, I feel like. So even the slightest color might pick up better when you scan it. Okay, so now I'm going to use the 20% French gray, and it's just a little bit darker. It's kind of more gray. It's not ideal, but I'm just going to start by adding it in these, the darkest places, so the shadows of the chair and the corners of the room. And here. Okay, so that's one room, and that's basically how I'm going to do all these wood floors. I'm going to speed through it, and I'm not going to talk over all of that because it's very repetitive. So I'm just going to speed through it, let y'all watch me, and then we'll talk about furniture next. Okay, so this is when I decided to add the Prismacolor colored blender, and it kind of helps bring the color out into the center a little bit, and it does a little bit of smoothing, but it's kind of difficult when you have darker colors. You can see more of like the colored pencil look. And then in a minute you'll see me try the liquid blender, and I honestly can't really tell much of a difference. It might make it just a little bit smoother, and it kind of gets the colored pencil wet, and it can glide just a little bit easier. Okay, so now I'm gonna do this sofa. I'm gonna use sable, which is kind of a yellowy color, and because I don't want it to match the floors too much. And then I might use some of goldenrod just for a little bit of shadows, and maybe some, let's see, putty beige. And we'll just see kind of from there. I might need to go back and use my white color pencil as a highlight. But really important furniture tip is to make it pop. You need to treat each cushion like its own shape. And again, with like the L that I was talking about, you need to focus on highlighting the center of the cushion and then deepening where it meets another piece. And so just think about, like Dr. Miller always says, is when you put your hands together, how dark it is right here. That's kind of what you're trying to convey in a piece of furniture. So right here where it meets is going to be the darkest part, and so that needs to be on each piece. So you could go ahead and just outline it like that and say, okay, well that's my darkest, and then I come back in with very light pressure and just kind of try to blend it. It's not going to move the color, but you're trying to just get somewhat of a gradient from white to this color. And again, just very, very light pressure. And then with the cushion, since this is such a small scale, I'm just going to kind of take medium pressure and do a little bit of color. Same with the arm. I just try not to color it completely in, because I find that it just looks like you colored, like you're coloring instead of rendering. So I'm probably gonna go to the next color now. I'm gonna use some goldenrod and just go again, because this is a darker color, in this shape that I'm trying to get to be the darkest. And again, you see how that just kind of made it pop a little bit. I'm gonna go again. I'm gonna kind of make the center of these top cushions the lightest part, so I'm gonna hit it with the goldenrod here and here, so on each corner. And then if your pencil's sharp enough, you should be able to go along the skinnier lines. I'm gonna go hit the arm just a little bit. I'm gonna go back again. And yeah, and so it's kind of quick once you get the hang of it. And you can go back in if you want it to be a little bit more gray. Kind of tone the orange down just a tad. Just kind of give it an overall gray. And then if you went too heavy on the cushion, you didn't get enough white, you can go back with the white and kind of bring that highlight back in some. Just like that. And so now I'm going to do the other sofa, and it's the same technique, and so I'm going to follow along two sides, so make the L shape again, just like this, and then kind of just take very light pressure and feather the color out, but don't color the whole cushion. I'm going to do the same with these. Kind of something like that. And I'm going to go back with white pencil for this one especially. and here, and hit that. And then back in with the goldenrod around there. And in the corners. I'm gonna go back in with the first color. Okay, I'm gonna go back again with the putty beige and just kind of tone it down just a tiny bit because I don't really want it to be orange. I'm gonna go back and color this a little bit to make it just a little bit darker. Okay. Now for the side chairs, I'm gonna do them blue, and so I'm gonna start with the lightest color. I would always start with the lightest color you can find, even if it doesn't go, like, you know, I didn't really like the orange, but I used the gray to tone it down. So I'm gonna do this cloud blue, which is here, and then I'm gonna use this light aqua, this one. And so that's what I'm gonna use for these side chairs. So again, I'm gonna start with the lightest color, and I'm gonna come in that L shape once again. And for an armchair, it's just the same technique as the sofa. And then light pressure, go over here. Make sure to leave white as your highlight. Do the same on this side. Just like that. I'm gonna come in and do these top cushions the same. Just hit a little bit of color on each side. And then for the arms, I'm just gonna kind of color them in. One thing that's important to keep for the armchairs is to keep the arm lighter than this part in here. You need to have some kind of contrast to show this is the arm and this is the cushion. So once I use the darker color, I'm gonna try to do that. So now I'm gonna go in with the light aqua. Now this color is gonna be probably more pigmented and it's gonna look a little scary at first, but just go light. And again, you're not trying to completely match your fabrics that you chose, because this is just to kind of showcase your floor plan, and it just makes it pop. And so where you're going to show the true color of your things that you've chosen is on your board. So don't try and get it as dark as your fabric is what I'm trying to say. I'm going to go back in with the lightest color. Okay. And now I'm going to go back in with the white and hopefully help some of this situation in here. Okay. I think I'm happy with that. I know I had it. Anyway, so we can kind of use this. I feel like this is more of like a final step because it makes sure it kind of wets your paper and almost turns it into marker. So just be really careful when you're using it. Kind of tap tap. Okay, I'm gonna go back in just a little bit, very lightly, just trying to make sure I got that depth right there. And we'll go a little bit on that side of the arm to give it just a little bit of shadow, but just barely. Want this to be the main shadow. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to do the side tables, and let's see. just going to go with some putty beige. And since this is so small, you really don't have to do much. I'm just going to kind of color in one side of it. And then I'm going to go in with, let's see, a darker gray. Not darker. We'll do this. This is 70% French gray. We'll just add a little bit of detail. And go back in. Okay, I'm gonna do the same for this. So we're gonna kind of focus on leaving one side as the highlight side, and I'll choose this side. And start putting more pressure towards this corner. And then go in with this darker gray here. And after I apply the darker color, I always like to go back in with the lighter because I find that using light strokes helps to blend the darker color out some, so it's not so harsh and you don't see as many pencil lines. Okay. And then I'm just gonna do the same thing to this table over here. Okay, so let's talk about fabric. So let's pretend I want this fabric on my dining room chairs. So I'm gonna take this, and because this is such a small area, you really can't go detailed, but I'm gonna take these colors. And so we have some blue, so again, I'll use my cloud blue, and then we have some gray, and I think French gray would work best. Let's see. This one, we'll do this one. Where's that? Yeah, okay, this one, and then I think we'll start working with that and see. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of create some stripes. Very small. Let me sharpen my pencil first. So just very lightly. I'm just trying to get a little bit of that message across that it's a striped fabric, and I might actually use just very lightly, but I might use the light aqua. Just because it's a little bit brighter. And all I'm doing is just kind of giving these chairs just a little bit of texture. And so it's not smooth as these, because it's not just that one color. Okay. I think for the bench, I think I'm gonna do that blue. So again, same technique. Okay. Next, let's talk about the counters. And so I'm going to use a little bit of putty beige, which is just a light gray. And I'm going to kind of start to lightly just take my pencil and You just kind of see I'm like turning it and letting it kind of draw for me and kind of using dotting. So I'm creating an effective marble. It's very light, and then I'm going to go back in with just a little bit more pressure and maybe add some darker lines in there. And then kind of just color a little bit the top ones. And do the same for the island. I'm going to go back with the tip of my pencil, kind of trace some of the prominent lines. Okay. I'm going to shade just a tiny bit to show that the bar stools come up just a little bit higher. Alright, and then really quickly I'm just going to hit these with a little bit of the yellow that I used. Go in with goldenrod, again with the L shape. See, I'm just being very quick. So I think the floor is the part that takes really the longest. I think that's probably good for that. That's how I would leave it. And I'm just going to kind of finish this up a little bit, and then I'll stop and talk if I need to. Okay, so let's talk about the bedrooms. So in my bedrooms, I had carpet, and so I found this that I have. You could find maybe some clothes that have texture, some pillows, concrete outside, but always try it first on a piece of paper. And what you do is you kind of take the pencil, lay it on its side, and just kind of do like this and see what texture picks up. So I'll use a darker color so you can kind of see a little bit better. It needs to be a little bit longer than this so that you can lay it on its side. Okay, so like this, yeah, that's better. So you see how it kind of picks up those textures. And again, you don't want to go like this because that doesn't pick up any texture. So you need to make sure you lay it on the side and almost completely horizontal, honestly, because that way it picks up the most texture. See, anytime if I start leaning forward, do you see what happens? So you still get a little bit of that texture, but you don't want it that dark. So always try and lean almost horizontal. So for my bedrooms, I'm going to use 20% warm gray, and I have my fabric underneath it, and I'm just gonna start coloring in. Okay, now I'm gonna go back in just like normal. I still have the fabric under it. I'm just gonna start to darken the corners, a little bit more pressure. Not really as focused on picking up the texture like I was. Okay, I'm making the bed and the bench kind of pop by highlighting, or actually shadowing, two of the corners. Do the same thing with the dresser. And the TV cabinet. Okay, now I'm gonna do the same thing for the other bedrooms. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about the rug and bathrooms and beds. So I added all the carpet, and I just went around the furniture, made sure it had some shadows, and I did the same for the garage areas, and I filled out the sofa and the tables in that room. So for the bathrooms, it's going to be really simple. I just have like 20% cool gray. So most of your appliances are white, like your toilet, but I just literally took my pencil and just hit one side of it very lightly. That just kind of helps give it something so it's not so white. And then for the bathtubs, I'm going to kind of do the same, just kind of color in a little bit like that. It's just something simple that will help add something to them so they're just not white. Okay, same for the sinks, and you might not even see this, but it's okay. Right, so now I'm going to do the bedspreads, and I'm going to use, let's do the rug first. Okay, so say my rug has like some sort of pattern in it, or I don't know, so I'm just kind of drawing something in here. Doesn't have to be exact. This is just a representation. So let's just pretend it's something like that. Then I'm just gonna come and shade it in just like normal, just like we have been doing this whole time. This is jade green. Yeah. I'm gonna come underneath the furniture and kind of, I'm not really shadowing, or I'm not really coloring in the rug. I'm more focused on getting the shadows underneath the sofas. Okay, now I'm gonna come back and don't forget the table. And we'll come back, and I think that's pretty good, and you can go back and add some more of those details in. Like that. Okay, I'm gonna use the same color to color in the bedspread, and so I'm gonna start at the top and get lighter as I go down, and then start to get darker again. I'm just gonna keep on doing that until I'm happy with the gradient. Something like that, and you can color in this triangle, kind of give some shadow underneath that part. Yeah, I mean, it's just that simple. And then you can color in the pillows like that, and you can use another color to color in sheets. I'm gonna go with this color. It's the same technique, and in the end I'll show you, you can add lines back in for your floor with the pencil. So if you have tile, you can just go back in and add some tile lines, or you can leave your hatch when you print it, but just make sure that your lines are very light, like this. So I left my lines hatched, like for the outdoor patio area, my bathrooms, but you can tell that they don't overwhelm the drawing at all. And so instead of hand doing them, you can also do that. It just depends on what you want to do and what you think looks better. Okay, I feel like I lost some of the lightness in here. I'm just gonna go back with circular motions and kind of make sure I got some of that, like that. Okay. Alright. Okay, I think that's it. I think I'm gonna color in these, and then I'll do some marble flooring in here. So in this bathroom, I'm gonna pretend that there's some marble. So again, it's gonna be like kind of the same technique as And then I'm going to color in just like normal. I'm going to take another color and do a little bit more veining, just so we have some like variation. Okay, so this is it. I added floor lines in the master bath, just like we did with the hardwood floors, and this is how it turned out. I didn't finish everything because I didn't feel like I needed to. And then this is the other one I did when I was a freshman. I kind of like the hatching better. It's a lot cleaner lines and it gives you something to work with. And I remind you that was with markers, so that's why it looks a little different. Thank y'all for watching, and I hope that this helps.